Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. So we have been talking about tokenization for a bit of time now on the channel because it is pretty much the next phase of crypto. And the thing about tokenization isn't so much about like how much value is tied to it, because we could talk all day about how there's hundreds of trillions of dollars out there that will someday be tokenized. But the big thing that I'm actually looking at with tokenization isn't so much the value behind it, but the players behind it. Like for an example, right? Like we hit $20 billion almost on chain. But if you look at the institutional funds that are now on chain, like you look through this and you can see some of the names, right? Like for the most part, these are the actual names behind them, like Securitize and Superstate and Libre Capital and Republic and things like that. But when you actually look behind all of these, you're talking about some of the biggest names out there, like Hamilton Lane, BlackRock, Franklin Templeton. I mean, the names out there behind this space is just kind of insane. Because again, if we go back in time and we look at this space, going back to like 2020, 2021, we were talking about institutional players. We were talking about how, crypto will be the home of like all the money and the big players out there will jump into crypto in a big way. And then all of a sudden in like 2022 up to now, we started to see that become a reality. And, at some point in time between that entire timeline, there was a lot of people that said like, no way, it's going to take years for the big players to actually join into the crypto revolution. The big banks don't want anything to do with crypto. They're scared of it, this, that, whatever. Now the biggest players out there like HSBC, Bank of America, Citi, JP Morgan, like all of these big banks and all the big institutional players, asset management companies, they're all in on crypto. And it's crazy to me that it's happening this fast because, I was kind of conservative with my timeline. I thought that it would take a little bit longer, but things are accelerating. Like things are actually happening a lot faster than we ever thought possible. So, we love to see this. And, even if we look at US Treasuries, there's billions and billions of dollars tied to the Treasury market. If we actually look at this, there's $5 billion right now. All right. And this might seem like a small amount, but look at how fast this is growing. Even during turbulent times within the market, this still continues to grow and become a bigger piece of the tokenized market in crypto. And this is accelerated by players like BlackRock through Securitize, Franklin Templeton. Ondo is a big player here as well, which I've been talking about quite a bit. Wisdom Tree's here. Some very large players. Now, on top of that, we bring this up because we continue to see tokenization becoming a much bigger piece of the puzzle. And even if we look at news, we could see the news around tokenization in general and see that this is continuing to become, a much, much bigger deal. You have Goldman Sachs ready. You have Franklin Templeton continuing to expand. Siam Commercial Bank. Dubai recently just announced that government agencies are linking a real estate registry with property tokenization now. And just like last week, we saw that they were planning like a $16 billion tokenization endeavor. So we could see that Dubai is very serious about this. And of course, the DTCC just unveiled a tokenized collateral platform in Crypto Push. Now, this is a Wall Street giant. They're clearing $3 quadrillion per year in securities transactions. So obviously, this is a big deal. But the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is because we just saw the SEC announce 4 upcoming crypto roundtables, which we are aware of. We've been tracking these. Now it's starting on the 11th of this month. The first one is just tailoring regulation for crypto trading. But April 25th, we have crypto custody being a focus, which we already know that everything starts with custody. And then May 12th, we have tokenization, moving assets on chain, where TradFi and DeFi meet. And then June 6th is DeFi and the American Spirit. So, the fact that we're starting to see a lot of interest around tokenization, even from the regulatory bodies out there like the SEC, it shows you that tokenization is not just some buzzword. It's not something that we could just throw around all day. No, it's actually becoming a much bigger piece of the global economy. And I think that it's just going to continue to grow and expand. But Ripple put out a post back on the 12th of February, and it was talking about crypto custody, actually. They said fintechs have a $20 trillion opportunity in crypto custody, which also means that Ripple themselves have a $20 trillion opportunity here. 96% of institutions see crypto as a key for attracting new customers. Secure and compliant custody is a must-have for fintechs offering crypto and tokenization services, and fintechs can meet both institutional and retail demand. Now, like I said, everything starts with custody, which is why we go to this announcement from Ripple from the 7th, where they said that by 2033, a $0.6 trillion to $18.9 trillion shift is coming as tokenization reshapes global finance. Why? Regulation and institutional adoption, real-world assets like bonds and real estate, faster interoperable financial infrastructure as well. The institutions that act now will lead the next era of finance. Now, I do hope that YouTube doesn't mute this because there is some music behind this, but I want to play this clip real quick. I'm actually going to speed it up just a little bit so that, if there is any copyright music behind it, hopefully it, kind of stops YouTube from muting it. So I'm just going to speed it up by like 1.5x. Hopefully it's not too fast. If you guys do want to slow down the video, you guys are more than welcome to, but check it out.
Tokenization is reshaping financial markets, making assets more accessible, efficient, and secure. By streamlining transactions and enabling fractional ownership, tokenization reduces costs by up to 60% and accelerates settlement from days to seconds. After initial hesitation, financial institutions are now publicly embracing tokenization. With this momentum, by 2033, tokenized assets are projected to exceed $18.9 trillion and continue the growth. As adoption accelerates, network effects driven by efficiency gains, interoperability, and regulatory clarity will establish tokenization as a financial industry standard. Tokenization is not just a trend, it is the next evolution in finance, and it's happening now. Tokenization is
So it's happening now, and it's the next evolution in finance. And I do completely agree with this, right? Like, even if we think about what's happening with stablecoins, stablecoins are a big game changer for fiat currency because we know that that's the step that's being taken right now to actually bring fiat on chain to revolutionize the FX market, the cross-border payment market. And it's happening through players like Ripple because of RLUSD. But on top of that, right, we think about some of the comments made by Ripple employees like Reese Merrick, for an example. He said, "We are approaching the tokenization tipping point." He asked this question. He said, "Finance is undergoing a fundamental shift as tokenization transforms financial assets into programmable, interoperable tools, enabling 24/7 transactions, fractional ownership, and automated compliance." On top of that, Mark Simfer said that driven by an emerging collective global effort, primarily among the largest financial players, tokenization technology is fundamentally changing finance. Tokenization is transforming financial assets into programmable, interoperable tools, enabling 24/7 transactions, fractional ownership, and automated compliance. At Ripple, we are excited about the potential of tokenization technology, and even more so following the launch of our new report with BCG, which is Boston Consulting Group. By the way, the original prediction here was $16 trillion by 2030. So within that 3-year time frame, $3 trillion, an additional $3 trillion from 2030 to 2033, which is it's actually more than the market cap of crypto right now, will be added to the tokenization market. This is why I say right now is not the time to be looking to get out of this market. It's actually the time to, start planting seeds for the long-term future here because, within the next 8 years, this market is going to expand so fast. And almost everything right now, in terms of like the price action behind a lot of these utility projects, the price action could immediately grow by 10, 15, 20. We don't know what the multiplier effects will be, but I just know that this entire space is going to be a lot bigger than what it is right now, especially with some of these forecasts. But we have, which looks at the status of real world asset tokenization market and forecasts that it could increase to almost $19 trillion in terms of like the actual market by 2033. And we have over here, Ripple setting up to be one of the largest financial technology companies in the world. This is from Subjective Views because this is James Wallace, who originally was like the CBDC name behind Ripple. But we have today, Ripple has released a new report with the Boston Consulting Group, which surveys the current status of the real world asset tokenization market, forecasting that it could increase to a $19 trillion market by 2033, driven by an emerging collective global effort from the largest financial institutional players out there. Institutions that act now will gain more than mere cost savings. By embedding token-based models into their operations, they can unlock new revenue streams, reach new client segments, and stay relevant to the most advanced users in the market. The message is clear. Tokenization isn't a side project. It's a strategic path and a new evolutionary step in finance. And if we look at this, okay, we have global financial infrastructure entering a new era as tokenized assets set to surge to $19 trillion by 2033. Now we have down here, the financial world is undergoing a fundamental shift. A new report by Ripple, the leading provider of digital asset infrastructure for financial institutions, and Boston Consulting Group projects the market for tokenized real-world assets to grow from 0.6 trillion today to 18.9 trillion by 2033, 9.4 trillion by 2030, with a CAGR of 53%. We have tokenization is transforming financial assets into programmable and swappable tools, recorded on shared digital ledgers. This enables 24/7 transactions, fractional ownership, and automated compliance. The report outlines a three-phase evolution. Number one is low-risk adoption. Institutions tokenize familiar instruments like money market funds and bonds. Phase two is institutional expansion, scaling into complex assets such as private credit and real estate. And then phase three is market transformation. Tokenization becomes embedded in financial and non-financial products. Early adopters like BlackRock, Fidelity, and JP Morgan are already operational. The market is transitioning from tokenized assets simply sitting on chain to integrating into real economic activity. Key growth enablers, regulatory clarity in markets like the EU, the UAE, Switzerland, largely established, and also expected soon in the US. Mature tech, infrastructure, including wallets and custody platforms, strategic investments by banks and fintech, M&A. A flywheel effect is driving adoption, where institutional supply and investor demand reinforce each other. Challenges like infrastructure fragmentation and regulatory divergence persist, but collaborative efforts on standards and infrastructure are helping to overcome them. Tokenization is no longer just a concept, it's the foundation for the future of global finance. Now, if we actually look into this report, the main thing that I'm actually looking at here is not so much all of the text. I'm looking at the growth here. So number one is the evolution of tokenized financial services. Initially, right now, we're looking at, markets. We're looking at the counters and letters, electronic mail, apps, dapps. Like, this is the evolution of everything around tokenized products. At some point in time, you are going to see everything tokenized. If we are actually looking at these reports and reading them, a lot of people are like, all right, well, tokenization is not going to be that big. But when you actually look at these reports, it shows you that all of the money out there in the world at some point in time will be fully tokenized. Now, the estimate here, they do break it down. Now, again, I'm not really focused on too much of the text. I'm more so looking at the growth rate here because we've already read through a lot of these reports. We already know what's actually being tokenized. We know what's happening here. The main thing that I'm actually looking at is the full breakdown of some of the markets that will be tokenized, because then we could actually look behind them and say, all right, well, how much money is actually tied to some of these markets? Like, for an example, real estate here. We know that real estate is going to be tokenized, and we can actually see that it's still making up a pretty decent amount of the full 18.9 trillion. But when you actually look at the real estate market, the global real estate market is $379 trillion. It's absolutely massive. And, 18.9 trillion by 2033, just imagine how much more money over the coming years will be tokenized, because they even do mention derivatives, which we already know is quadrillions of dollars. So at the end of the day, like, some of these markets that are going to be touched by, tokenization, this is just a small amount. Like, if we actually think that $19 trillion is a large amount of money, it's actually not in the idea of like some of these markets that are going to be touched by tokenization, and how much more money is actually left on the table yet to actually be tokenized, even if 19 trillion was. But here we have the twin flywheels of tokenization market adoption, and we could see this through like the B2B side, the B2B2C side, and then also the B2C side. So you have more liquidity, more clients, we have the design, development, improvement, and then the consumer-facing features. All of this is just one big cycle of how much money is just going to be moving on-chain and through a lot of these ledgers. It's not just about bringing the money on-chain. It's about, transacting with it, trading, earning yield on some of these tokenized assets. There's so much happening here, and I'm telling you guys right now, like, when we think about what's really going on here, like, yeah, sure, we have to go through phases. Yeah, it's going to be slow initially, but once we start to actually see the money on chain, from that point on, it starts to expand rapidly. And here we could actually see the efficiency potential enabled by tokenization. So investment grade bonds, savings of 40 to 60 million, real estate savings of 100 to 150 million, collateral and liquidity management saving of 150 to 300 million. Now, when we're thinking about some of these savings, right, like, this actually isn't, taking into account like all the money in some of these markets, like real estate, for an example. It's only addressing like one bank with $100 billion in daily repo volume. So if we're thinking about like these savings, these are just small projections on what's possible. Like even treasury and cash management savings of like 55 million to 140 million, or like trade finance and working capital savings of like 2 billion to 4 billion. This is just going off of like volume of like about $50 billion. We know that these markets are trillions and trillions of dollars. But they just address some of the markets, like for example, investment grade bonds. It's $140 trillion global bond market. Like these amounts here that are going to be targeted, they even do mention like real estate with more than $300 trillion in global asset value. Like all of these markets, it's such a small amount moving on chain. The actual addressable value here, it's not even in trillions, it's quadrillions of dollars. So we're going to continue to see tokenization expanding. We're going to, see tokenization moves being made throughout the year. I think that the moves so far this year have been pretty large, even though it's been kind of crowded with noise around like the trade war and tariffs. I think everyone should be paying attention to what's actually going on here, because Wall Street's moving on chain, the big banks are moving on chain, and it's happening through names like Ripple. Like Ripple is a big driver around this. Ondo's a big driver around this. Axler as well. Hedera. I'm very excited about the future here. I think that we're going to see some of these assets like XRP and HBAR. They're going to be valued in the trillions of dollars because the efficiencies behind them, the savings that they could offer in terms of having those tokenized products on their networks and their ledgers. I'm very excited about the future here. So with that being said, if you guys did enjoy this video, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because of more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.